My name is John, and I am a nobody. To continue our Freddie the Rat story, after it had scuttled behind the refrigerator, I went to the bedroom and got the Walther. I came back, and much to my surprise, the rat was still close to the refrigerator and just staring up at me. This small rodent, well, it was big, but a small rodent looking up at something that was as high as a 10-story building, just looked me in the eye, and I stood in front of it with the gun pointed down and ready to fire. Now, the CS gas guns are supposed to be lethal at point blank range. So if you're very close, and I could have killed it. I'm not into killing things or animals, but I'm not into sharing a flat with a huge rat. Call me old-fashioned. Too much to my surprise, it kept staring at me and I kept staring at it. And that's what shocked me. I should have pulled the trigger right then, but I didn't. So it turned its head off to one side and scuttered behind the refrigerator again. And I pulled the trigger, but I was too late. The sound of the gun going off was enormous. I'd never fired it before, and I was shocked at how loud it was. And the kitchen filled up immediately with gas, so I had to leave the room. I waited for the gas to dissipate, and then I went back. I was sure that the neighbors must have called the police because the gun was so loud. Everybody in the whole block must have heard it. But the police never came. It's a funny thing with the German police. I had the privilege of meeting three very nice, it has to be said, West German police officers. One of them had been working, tracking down those rose sellers they used to have in Berlin at the time. People who would come into restaurants and try to sell you a rose you didn't want. She eventually managed to get moved to another unit, and they concentrated on child exploitation, where she was far better suited. One of the other police officers I met was a very nice man. We met outside in one of my favorite bars, and it was the last place in that area of town that used to get sunlight. And we used to meet there sometimes. I'd see him. He was such a nice man. The pub later got firebombed, but that's another story. He told me he was proud of not ever drawing his or firing his weapon. He'd only drawn it once. He'd never fired it, and he was proud of that. I mean, really proud, which is the sign of a wonderful policeman, probably. He told me this great story about when the police were patrolling, when just after the wall had come down. They had two officers, one from the east and one from the west, and they would patrol together. The police officer from the east was carrying a Russian-made pistol, a Makarov, if you're interested. I'd seen one up close when I'd been in Ukraine playing. And he told me that the Makarov, when it was fired, it emitted a dangerous gas which was not environmentally friendly. So they banned it, and a lot of the East German police that were walking around at that time might have had a holster, but there was nothing in the holster because they weren't allowed to carry these Makarovs. What a strange thing a strange story. So if a policeman is holding a gun up against you, pointing to you, towards you, you know, you could, in theory, say, well, what are you going to do? You can't shoot me because it's environmentally dangerous to do so. Anyway, it's a weird world, but you know that already. So, thank you very much for watching this. It was only short, but it was the second part of the story. I wrote a note to the landlord telling him that the rat and I had had a disagreement and the rat had won, and I moved out. Take care of yourself and all those you love, and I hope to see you in the next one. Feel free to give this a thumbs up or to become a member or whatever you do. It doesn't cost anything, and presumably it's going to help me in some way or another. Okie dokie, then take care of yourself and see you in the next one. Bye for now, and Tschüssikowski.